Space Coconut.
Okay, so today what we're doing here is I'm going to show you the build guide slash time lapse of putting together this Aztec temple. Ever since Valheim came out, I wanted to make a pyramid, and generally I usually go with pyramids in building games that I have. If you've seen my Satisfactory structure, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. The majority of the video is just going to be sped up. I'm just going to show clips and pieces. I'm not going to time lapse the whole thing because this sucker took like 7 or 8 hours to put together. Also, I did use the console to do this because the amount of time that I have available would have been completely taken up just by mining and hauling the ore back and forth to this thing. So I just wanted to build the building, and so we used the console. We used the crafting cheat, as you will, to make the building. So what you're looking at is the unfurnished structure. I made a deal with myself that I would only use the console to build the structure, and that any furnishings and stuff would be stuff that I farmed for or had on hand. This was just to save the time that it would have taken to farm up all of the stone and the iron that this thing would have taken to build. And that's including building the island. So, as we go, as I put the video together, I'm just going to chime in here and there about this stuff, but I'm not going to give you the whole time lapse because I know those things are kind of boring. You just want the important bits. So, first, the location. I originally wanted to build this thing in the middle of a lake. I found this really nice one nearby where my spawn point was, but I learned very quickly that you cannot build anything in the ocean. The land, even though you level the ground or raise the ground, you can only do that up to the shelf in the ocean, and then it just drops down into the ocean. So my middle of the ocean idea was out. So the next best thing was to find an island that was pretty isolated and surrounded by ocean. I was pretty lucky in this seed. The trader spawned a little ways south of where I was, and I stumbled upon him looking for swamp. And in that, I actually remember marking an island. And so I went back and checked it out, and I figured that this thing would be just right for my pyramid. So the first step was to clear the area of life and flatten it out as best I could. The next thing I knew I needed to do was to figure out how tall I can make this thing. Once I figured out how tall I could make this thing, then I figured out how many floors we could make and still give myself some decent headroom so the camera wasn't being awkward and weird. Unfortunately, after I figured out how many floors I needed, I forgot about the smelter, and so I had to redo the floors and stuff, and adding an extra block of height to make room for the smelter. And the next thing I needed to know was how big did I want to make the top. Now that I knew how many floors I was going to have, that was how many blocks away from the center group that the base would be. So if I remember right, there were 6 floors, so however big my top room would be, the base was going to be 6 blocks wider than that on each side. So I needed to map out that area that the pyramid was going to cover. Unfortunately, in my unrestrained imagination, the pyramid was going to be maybe 2 or 3 floors above sea level. Unfortunately, I forgot my lesson from the island fiasco, and the coast only went up so high. So what ended up happening when I tried to raise this entire island into the air, it followed the contour of the land that was beneath it, right? So I couldn't make it very tall. At most, I think it was maybe 2 floors above sea level. And from where I decided my center point was going to be, the lowest corner was much lower than what I wanted it to be. So it was either throw away hours of work and move, or suck it up and make it where I started. By then, I had already raised the center of the island and some of the edges, and I'd already placed a lot of stuff, so I wasted a lot of time raising this to be the way I wanted it. Now, if you're going to build a pyramid, I really suggest that you do it on mainland somewhere. don't make an island. Or if you make an island, find one that's naturally high. I don't know, maybe in the Hearth and Home update that the devs have planned, there will be some more building options that will make this easier. But creating an island, don't do it. It's a pain in the ass. So once I decided to go ahead and level the rest of the island, I had to get rid of that mountain. So that was a lot of pickaxe work also to get the ground even. Now, I had a lucky accident when I put this thing together. So I had the walls set up on the ground, and then I knew that I wanted a stone floor. But I had to be careful about setting the stone on the ground, because that would have taken away an entire block's worth of height away from the space that I had available. So the stone ended up being embedded into the ground, and it only had like 1/4 of the stone up from the ground. So I didn't lose a whole lot of space on the from the stone floor, and so I was able to use that and make sure that I had the iron poles in the stone touching the ground, so the iron poles were the base of our primary foundation along the center of the pyramid. And now with the floor in place and the walls in place, the next big hurdle was the first stone ceiling. Now I had done this before in my second base because I wanted to see if you could get a stone ceiling with very few supports, and it's possible. You have to kind of weave the stones into each other, and it's wonky, but if you play with it and start on the outer edges and then work your way in, you'll be fine. We also had the our primary foundation in the center of the pyramid, so working the stone towards the center and then using that foundation to help hold it made it pretty easy to create that stone floor. Now, the most important thing to remember that I actually didn't figure out until the end of this build when I was working on the final level is that you don't need these stone pillars at the bottom to hold the structure while you put the ceiling on. That's what I did in my second base, but I've come to find out that if you build the skeleton of your floor using iron poles, making sure that they touch the ground, making sure that they touch each other, they will create just enough force to hold the ceiling in place while you connect it to every other piece around it. So every piece kind of supports each other, and everything kind of lays on the iron poles. And make sure you get that skeleton in place. This way you know each of the iron poles is touching each other. That's going to make putting your ceilings together very easy, and it's going to provide you the support that you need to get your build as high as you can get it. After you get the pattern down for your first floor, you just repeat that however many times that you can, or however many times that you need to build up to your final floor. Now, as you're worried about the floor and the foundation and the skeleton and all that stuff, don't forget to add some stairs. Once you get there, you're just going to have to figure out how you want to top it off. I wanted windows in the top level, and getting that together was a challenge because it's at the very tippy top of the pyramid where everything crumbles once you put it on top of each other. So yeah, it was just a matter of getting the floors and the ceiling. Once you get that, you can build the whole thing. Don't panic if you see a sea of red. As long as it doesn't break, it'll stay fine. And you can even build some wood stuff on top of it, but you just can't go very high. You can put whatever you want in there, including a lot of decorations. And I hope you enjoyed this build video of this Aztec temple. Valheim is a Viking-based game, but I'm Mexican, so I gotta rep the heritage, know what I mean? Once I get this thing furnished and set up the way I want, including a dock and a farm and all that stuff, I'll go ahead and make a base tour video so you guys can see what we finished up with that. So I'll make that video eventually. If you want to see more Valheim stuff, be sure to sub to the channel and hit the bell. YouTube hates it when I do something that's not Dead by Daylight related, so if you liked this Valheim stuff, the best way for it to show up in feeds and all of that stuff is to do the things like share, sub, comment, and hit the bell and all those other things. Can probably do some quality of life stuff. I can talk about mods. We'll see. But if you want to see more Valheim stuff, help me out. YouTube hates it when I do new videos. But with all of that out of the way, let me know what you thought about this video. Let me know what you thought about the build. If you have any suggestions for how we should lay out the inside or what you want to see for the base tour, let me know. And until next time, I'll see you in Valheim.